Hello. Well, I've just returned from having waffles with my family just after the last talk about an hour ago, and I remember that someone asked about the similarities and differences between Tai Chi and what I practice Liuhebafa, and so I thought I would chat a bit about it from my perspective. So this talk probably won't have that much to do with internal alchemy, but I know there's a lot of overlap between these arts, and there's lots of people in this program who also practice internal martial arts, and so you might find this of interest, another perspective anyways. There are a number of different internal martial arts. Martial arts can be differentiated between internal and external. However, those terms are slippery terms, challenging to define, and everyone sort of has their own definition of what those terms are, which I'm not going to try and go into myself. I don't really get too attached to those terms. I just do what I want to do and practice the arts I want to practice. And for me, I've found that I really like Liuhebafa, which is, it's a fairly rare style, a rare way, tradition. Not many good teachers of it. As with so many of these arts, you need to find a teacher who knows the internals. Otherwise, from my perspective anyways, it's not really worth practicing. Forms are nice, I guess, but you need to understand the internal mechanics of those forms and how to build whatever it is you need to build, and go through a process of transformation and development, right, with these arts. So in general, there's 4 internal martial arts. Again, these chopping them up can be can be problematic, but because there's other ones that aren't included, and some of the ones that are included, depending on how the teacher practices it, might not be. So Xingyi Quan, Bagua Zhang, Tai Chi Quan, and Liuhebafa, or Liuhebafa Quan. Often people just talk about the first 3, Liuhebafa, because Liuhebafa is just very rare. It's not found very often. The lineage I have from, it comes from Hong Kong. There was a number of good teachers that went to Hong Kong early in the 1900s, or mid 1900s, and taught there. And so there's a lot of it in Hong Kong. Liuhebafa comes from a fellow named Wu Yihui, and he was a very well-known martial artist in China in the Republican period, so the 20s and 30s and 40s. And he was a famous martial artist, famous fighter. And he had a system of training that he called, what was it called? The Hua Yue Xi Yi Men. So yeah, I'm not going to translate that right now. It's Hua Yue is Hua Mountain. Xi Yi, I will translate. Xi Yi is not seeing and not hearing. It's a paired phrase from the Tao Te Ching, and it often references Taoist practice. And Men is gate, so gate up. That's the original the original name of it. But let's stay away from history. I mean, I love history as much as the next guy, but the question was, how do these arts relate? At least Tai Chi and Liuhebafa, what I practice. So I also did a lot of Tai Chi over the years. I started with Liuhebafa, and then I went to Chen style Tai Chi, Chen family Tai Chi, I should say, and then I went to Wu family Tai Chi, and then came back to Liuhebafa, but a different lineage of Liuhebafa. So I've done 2 different lineages of Liuhebafa, and then I did Chen family Tai Chi with Chen Yu, and I became an indoor disciple of the Chen family under Chen Yu. And then did some really amazing Wu family stuff as well. So I've had some exposure. I'm not the martial arts isn't my main focus, and I'm not very good at martial arts. Certain things that that I kind of feel more natural affinity for and just pick up faster than martial arts, like internal alchemy and whatnot. But martial arts can be fun. They're just sort of fun to play around with, and I like the way they affect the body. And so for me, the focus on practicing internal martial arts has been foundation training for internal alchemy. Right from the beginning, it was always that for me. Applications and that are important because they help pressure test what you're doing, and to make sure you have connection inside the body and whatnot. So it is important, but it's not, for me, just not the goal. I love the way that internal martial arts condition and develop the body and develop certain qualities in the body, such as song, kind of a well, let's set that aside for now. I'm going to get into it through comparing the two. Now, Chen family Tai Chi and Wu family Tai Chi, the interesting thing is they're very different, right, in terms of an art. And back in the old days, people who were involved in this stuff in China weren't that interested in the very hard distinctions we have now in terms of styles. Even the word Tai Chi and, this style Tai Chi, that style Tai Chi, there was just, this lineage. There's this person's Kung Fu, right? And if it was Tai Chi, it was Tai Chi, great. If it was something else, they didn't really get bogged down with that stuff. It was just, there was this guy's Kung Fu, and then this guy's Kung Fu, and then this guy's Kung Fu, and then the lineages that came down from those people and whatnot. So the way that Chen Yu practiced was very different from the way that the Shanghai Wu guys that I practice with did their thing. And the kind of body that it conditioned was very different. And then you contrast that again with Liuhebafa, and you have three different ways of approaching the internal arts. I don't think there is, and some of you may disagree with this, but I don't think there is a kind of fundamental way of doing these arts, right? Some people say, well, you don't need style because there's a fundamental way that everyone should just do it, and that fundamental way is the way I do it. It's usually the way the argument goes. But I found that, I hung out with Chen Yu every day for a few years. I was training full-time with him. So I got a really strong sense of how he uses his stuff. And he was a bodyguard. He was I definitely used it in the streets. And the way he generated power and used his stuff was very different from my Wu family teacher, or the Liuhebafa stuff, right? And so, yeah, there are some similarities in sort of, where the bodies are the same and how you're going to use the body there's going to be some definite overlap, but there's different ways that you can actualize that from what I've experienced. Okay, so enough preamble. Let's get into it, right? So the differences are quite stark in terms of, let's just contrast Liuhebafa with Tai Chi. And here I'm more using Wu family Tai Chi, but also it applies to Chen style too. Although those who are different, they are both kind of more on one side from Liuhebafa. So with Tai Chi, your the way of moving is by centering in the body, right? Finding your zhongding. However you want to define that term, and that term is a really interesting term. It goes really deep as well. But generally you're finding your center, let's just say physically, right, in the body for now, and learning to move from there, right? So that often means getting into the lower abdominal space, the lower abdominal cavity, building that up. What Tai Chi people call the dantian. For us, it's not a dantian, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a different definition of terms, right? And so for them, it's a dantian, right? So you build up the dantian, that lower space. It gets your center of gravity drops down into there, and then into the legs and feet and earth, and you're moving from that bowl, right? So with Wu family Tai Chi, one of the things the teacher would work on us, especially initially, is just you move that first, and then the hands last, right? So the hands shou man ban pai. So like a half, the hands are half beat slower than the that area, right? So you're getting this torque that goes up the spine and out the limbs to the hand, right? And so that is a very sort of certain way of moving. And through that all, you're relaxing. The most important is you're songing all the time, right? Just sinking into there, and then slowly moving that without the shoulders raising or your chi and your gravity coming up, right? So you want to just sink, song and sink, and then turn and move to issue power. Chen family Tai Chi, at least with Chen Yu, there's a very distinctive Shen Fa or body method they use, but it's similar. So you're starting with that area, although then you also have a center here which is rotating as well as the lower dantian, and then here, and they're kind of doing this cool. Well, seeing Chen Yu do it was amazing. Like his shoulders won't move, but there's this torquing rotation that will go through his whole spine, and then out to the hand, boom, boom. That's how he fought. That's how he emitted his power, right? It was just boom, boom, boom. Liuhebafa does not do that. Liuhebafa, not only does it not do that, it does the opposite of that. Like, what? It's amazing how you can do the opposite and then still develop something really, really amazing. Like, because both you can develop short power and soft power with both. But anyways, okay, so that's a whole other discussion. So how does Liuhebafa does it? Okay, so Liuhebafa does it this way. Instead of having one center, Dongding or the Dantian, Liuhebafa has 5 centers or 5 terminals. There's Wu Xin or Wu Tong, and Tong is kind of like end of the line, subways going to the Tongzhan, the last stop on the line is the terminus place, right? So, but often it gets translated centers, Wu Xin, and it's said that way in Chinese too. So we have 5 centers that you're coordinating and moving from, and everything initiates from those 5 centers. And the 5 centers are the 2 feet, the 2 hands, the Laogong points, and the Yongquan on the bottom of the feet, and then your Baihui. Those are the 5 centers. So this here, don't worry about it. Just you don't really think about it, right? You're spreading everything out. Say if my fingers are the 5 centers, right? Everything out, and then everything moves from there, and then everything in between just comes along for the ride, and it'll align properly, right? So you're just pulling everything open. So instead of relaxing and sinking, important for Liuhebafa too, you want song and sinking, especially to get the feet centers, the 2 feet engaged, right? So there's a process, just a period of time where you actually train it, where you'll just forget about arms and upper body as they do with Tai Chi, and just get down into the feet. But once you get the feet, then you want to get the 2 hands and the top of the head. And you're focusing more on stretching, right? Creating this dynamic stretching. So you're getting your fingers and you're pumping open. That's what connects all the connective tissues and fascia and whatnot. So you're working with that sort of dynamic, and you're also creating a lot of spirals by using the 5 centers, and we also call the 5 centers and the 9 joints. By properly using all of those, you create these really interesting spirals and torques inside the body, right? But you basically just forget about the torso, you forget about the belly, and you put your awareness as well. And this is a really big one, right? Because I think a good definition of internal arts is that which uses E. When you're using your E, your awareness properly, as well as Shen and Qi, right? So we talked about this in internal alchemy as well. In your courses 1 to 5, course 5 I think gets into it. I mean, course 4 a little bit, when we start working with Shen, Qi, and Yi, and those 3 substances, getting more into Shen Gong, and it's a bit more advanced than say the courses I have on course 1, 2, or 3. Course 1, 2, and 3, we're working with Qi Jing, right? Working with the Jing energy and the Qi and just that sort of stuff. Anyways, back to the discussion at hand. We're expanding our awareness outwards. So this is a very different way of practicing, say, from, with Wu family Tai Chi, we're putting our awareness inside the torso, inside the belly. It's very inside. We almost don't even really care what's happening outside, right? For Liuhebafa, it's the opposite. So it's not only are you using the 5 centers, but you're expanding your awareness out big, right? So you're creating a bubble, a sphere around your whole body that gets bigger and bigger and bigger with practice. Chen family talks about sphere too. Chen, you work on the sphere, the external sphere around us. That's kind of indoor stuff, though. I don't hear people. That's not talked about publicly very much. Which is another reason these Tao talks. So I want to keep them kind of private. And so working with that sphere to expand it, right? And so Liuhebafa, you're outside. And so often you'll have Tai Chi guys come in to do Liuhebafa, and my teacher, his first correction, usually he's like, yeah, get out of your body, get out of your body, get out of your body. Which doesn't make sense, because it's like, but it's internal, and I gotta do my spine and do this and all this kind of stuff. It's like, no, just focus on the for now, just focus on the 5 centers and just get out and stretch open, right? Get everything open, and it works. The Liuhebafa way, it does work. Liuhebafa is a very powerful art for getting into the spine, working the spine, and developing structure in the body, right? So by opening up, expanding, right? So it's a very expansive art, a lot of twisting and expanding, right? You're opening up. You find a structure with a skeletal structure that everything kind of begins to fit into the right spot. And that's one of the things I really like about it. Tai Chi has structure too, for sure. You're relaxing and sinking, and then everything kind of just, and your skeletal system is up, and everything else just sinks. And then that's how you find the structure, right? And everything, and where you're tight, you'll relax and let go, and then the structure will come out more and more. So they both get it. It's just a different starting point. Burping a bit. My waffles. Too many waffles this morning. And so I think that's probably the main difference between Liuhebafa and Tai Chi. And so, in terms of application, Tai Chi, very often you find that center, right, and you work around it. And your opponent comes in, and you bounce them, or use their force to just rotate them around your center, control them, send them somewhere else. Liuhebafa is more about spirals than circles. So you're more, I can't really get in the video, but you're creating these quite complex angles and spirals, which is why it's such a hard art to learn. It's a really hard art to learn, especially to start with, because there's so many lines, angles, and spirals in each move, and each move has different angles and lines and spirals. So my teacher, he'll just kind of create this structure, and he just spirals, right? His lines and his angles are so you come in, you try to punch him, and he'll be somewhere else, and in complete control. And then there's a lot of called inch power or short power. But I think a lot of the internal arts have access to that as well. So I don't think that's specific to Liuhebafa. But yeah, so that's the main difference between the two arts. And then finally, I think the most important thing is finding a good teacher who you like working with. Style, it can get really tricky. I want to do that style, and you try and look for it, and you can do that. But if you find a really good teacher teaching something that might not be the exact style you want to learn, I would go for it if you have the opportunity, right? It's rare. It's rare to find teachers that have gotten to the upper echelons of these arts. They're so deep. There's so much more than just form. They take years and years of rigorous training to master. And so I think the biggest thing is just finding a teacher that works for you and has the full knowledge. I don't teach Liuhebafa because I'm not good enough at it. You know, I like it. I can teach sort of beginner level of it, but I have so much more to learn with it as myself. And to be honest, I don't know if I will really, I don't know how much I'll be able to get, just because internal alchemy is my thing. I love internal alchemy more than anything, and that's my practice. And so if there's a choice between, you know, okay, I got an afternoon to practice, you know, I'll probably go for internal alchemy and some of the stuff I've learned from Master Wang. And then I just try to keep the Liuhebafa going. They do help each other. They definitely do. And the Liuhebafa is still opening up for me. There's still, you know, there's lots of stuff there to learn. I'm just not sure how far I'll go down that road. Like, I don't know where it's really going to take me. But who knows? Who knows? I'll just keep doing it. Yeah. So I think I'll just leave it there. That's a very sort of basic level distinction between the Tai Chi and Liuhebafa. There's a lot of more advanced stuff in both arts that you could compare and contrast as well. But I'll leave that for another time. So hopefully that gives you a sense of what those two arts are. Okay? Okay, I'll talk to you some other time. Bye-bye.